Yeah, so FIL Sports Debate, thank you for joining the channel. I can't say 0% chance.
Put your money where your mouth is, FYI. Put your money where your mouth is.
Woo!
Put your money where your mouth is.
Let's bet $200 that Lonzo Ball's traded.
FYF always comes in with fireballs.
Yep. And I'm riding with DJ, so I double that.
Oh man! Now that's not just a 200 for me. That's
400.
That's 400.
Okay, so I was wrong on that. It was not 600. It was actually 400. So it's 200 from Revolution Radio, 200 from DJ. All right, I'll make sure I'll be sending both of you brothers my cash out. And if you need a reminder, I can also provide you a snippet of this video. Obviously, I mean, if you're watching it now, you'll see a snippet of it. But obviously, this is a very good reminder of the bet that we made. Who's the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for all of your below the waist grooming needs. Get 20% off and free shipping with coupon code FYFCREW at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code FYFCREW.
All I hear is yap. Ain't talking about nothing, right? Watch this. We gon' bring that pressure.
Just a little FYI, FYF, 20K sub 6 months, what's next? They been hating at first, now they calling us the best. Hit up YouTube, tell them cut the check. Just a FYI, FYF, 20K sub 6 months, what's next? Woo, fuck your feelings, we all know who the real is. I be getting to it, ain't wasting no time. Walking straight in, we ain't waiting in line. Fuck your feelings, you don't care about mine. You a YouTube gangster, don't be yelling out.
It's FYF Sportsman, it's Lamont. We are back with another podcast episode, man, and today has been a crazy day. Today was the NBA trade deadline day. Coming into this trade deadline, we heard a lot of chatter, man. We heard a number of players' names being thrown out there in the potential trade market. It sounded as if a lot of teams were going to be buyers, willing to make those risky moves to really put themselves in a situation where they can really compete. Today is a day where we saw the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler called it last year. The Miami Heat pulled off the trade to bring Oladipo to Miami. We expect that he's going to re-sign there. Just another thing, as expected, the Cavs are buying out Drummond. The teams, as I spoke of in my previous streams before, as we spoke of about Andre Drummond, his contract situation with the size of his contract, there's only a handful of teams in the league that can absorb that amount of money. And the teams that can absorb that amount of money don't necessarily need him, especially when he's on an expiring contract and they don't know if he's going to resign. Most teams, it was understood in the NBA that Drummond wants to play for a contender. And most contenders in the NBA don't have salary cap space. So a trade for Drummond was unlikely. He's being officially bought out right now, as reported by Adrian Wojnarowski. We saw today, we saw the Hawks and the Clippers make a trade. The Clippers needed a point guard to fill in that point guard position. Now, going into the trade deadline, there were a number of rumors that, yes, the Clippers are going to go after Lonzo Ball. No, that sounds nice. But again, I think that's something that was just thrown out there in the media. I don't think there was any reality to that particular trade situation. They need, if they're looking to win championships, they need a more veteran presence. And I don't honestly think that Lonzo would be the perfect fit with two ball dominant players in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It potentially could work, but at the end of the day, the Clippers didn't feel it would work. Obviously, we saw that they got off of a bad contract in Lou Williams. Lou Williams looks as if he's made a sharp decline in his career. He went from averaging 20 games a year last year. I think he's maybe under 10 points a game this year. So they got off that contract. They brought in a veteran guard who can help them make a playoff run, and it's a short-term commitment. Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's name was really getting tossed around in trade talks. We're talking about from Philly to the Lakers to the Clippers. There were a number of teams that could have used him, but again, you're talking about a situation where Kyle Lowry has already publicly come out and stated that he wants to make max money next year as a 35-year-old point guard. If you do trade for him, you're unlikely to re-sign him in free agency. And so even trading for Kyle Lowry, if you're not a contender, if you're not immediately in win now mode right now, then trading for Kyle Lowry would probably put you in a lose-lose situation. So in a trade deadline where all we heard was Kyle Lowry's definitely getting traded, and we saw snippets of him waving to the crowd, the media put out a narrative that he was going to be gone. Kyle Lowry ends up staying in Toronto. That's also what I predicted. One of the biggest, the oddest trades to me, the one that really didn't make much sense, was with my own team. We saw the Toronto Raptors. They traded Norman Powell to the Portland Trailblazers for Gary Trent and Rodney Hood. Now, I understand what the Blazers were doing. This is what the Blazers basically did was give themselves some salary cap relief without losing much talent-wise on the floor. I mean, Rodney Hood, who's injured, he hasn't been the same after tearing his Achilles. And then you got Gary Trent, a promising young player who can defend and score. All right. But between those two players, you have a lot of salary invested in those two players. You can dump some salary and maybe get into the buyout market by also opening up a roster spot by giving up two players for one, and you don't really lose much. I think Norman Powell is a better version of Gary Trent Jr. So I think you improve on the perimeter wise. You don't lose anything defensively. And then you also open up a roster spot. I believe that a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge or even Kevin Love, I think those guys who are probably going to be getting bought out. I know it's officially confirmed that LaMarcus Aldridge is getting bought out. It's players like that who they're probably going to look to help shore up the front line over there. And a lot of people were upset. How come the Blazers didn't immediately jump onto the trade market to get a big? Well, one of the reasons why is there's a lot of bigs in the buyout market. And I think a lot of teams knew that. I think the Blazers are going to be in play for one of those bigs. My prediction is going to be either Kevin Love or LaMarcus Aldridge, although Drummond could potentially be a long shot. Another trade we have is the 76ers trading for George Hill. As soon as I saw, and again, Lonzo Ball's name was thrown into that mix, that saying that the Sixers were, also interested in Lonzo Ball. But once I saw that the Sixers made this trade with OKC to bring in a veteran point guard in George Hill, I said, well, that's completely dead right there. There's no way they bring in George Hill and Lonzo Ball. And again, when you're talking about a team like the Sixers in win now mode, I think they were looking to bring in guards with high IQ, which Lonzo's high IQ, but also a lot of playoff experience, which is what George Hill has. And also, you're not committing yourself long term. By bringing Lonzo Ball in, if you're the 76ers, that's not necessarily a short-term commitment, because the first thing you have to look at when the offseason hits is this a player that we want to keep long-term going forward into the future of this team? With George Hill, it's a short-term commitment and you get instant impact on the court. One of the biggest trades of the day, and this just kind of started off the trade deadline day. And once I saw this trade unfold along with another trade that I'm about to mention, that's when I kind of knew early into the NBA trade deadline which players were going to move and which players weren't going to move. But we got Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon got traded to the Denver Nuggets. So Aaron Gordon goes to the Denver Nuggets. Orlando Magic, they get Gary Harris and RJ Hampton. So we saw the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets they jumped out there because they gave up their first round pick this year. And they also gave up Gary Harris to make the salaries match. So Gary Harris, a guy who was struggling, we talked about him before. I predicted that he was going to be on the move. I just didn't know where. And remember, the teams that were really actively in the trade market, really looking to make major moves, are the quietest. This is a trade that nobody heard anything about. There were no whispers, there were no rumors, right? When these teams went into the back rooms of the NBA and made these deals happen without the media dipping their nose, getting involved and spreading rumors throughout social media. So, if you're talking about this year's trade deadline or even ones in the future or in the past, generally when you hear a player's name come up a lot in the media, that's a telltale sign that that player's probably not going to get moved, and there's probably some force such as an agent or representation of a player that are looking to try to create noise or even gauge the value of a particular player by putting their name out there. So there's a lot of players that I heard whose names continuously kept getting thrown out there. But obviously you have to consider the business of basketball. You have to consider what benefits these teams most in any particular trade. And then you also have to consider the team who's trading for a player. How does it benefit them? Or whatever pieces they get or whatever pieces they have to give up. So we got Aaron Gordon going to the Denver Nuggets. Now, the one thing I question about this trade right here is the specific fit. The specific fit. So the one thing that this tells me right here is that the Nuggets don't trust Ball. The Nuggets don't trust JaMychal Green. Obviously, that's a position right there that they needed to shore up. And what I like with what the Denver Nuggets did was they got more size. When you look at Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and now you have Aaron Gordon all defending on that front line. That's a lot of athleticism, size, and length, and it's some high IQ basketball players. Aaron Gordon publicly stated he wanted out of Orlando back in January. Orlando capitulated and made the move happen. I like what Denver's doing. Denver's definitely, they didn't stay pat. They went out. They got better. They've done a good job this year of developing Michael Porter Jr., who's been playing some great basketball. I criticized his defense last year. His defense has improved. It still could be better, but you can see that he's making strides. He's getting better as time wanes. So I like the direction that the Denver Nuggets goes. And it's moves like this that, again, when the Lakers see moves like this, the Lakers have to open their eyes. And the Lakers are really going to have to get active in the buyout market, because now there's a real possibility that a team beneath you can come catch you and drop you in those rankings. And we know the Lakers are dealing with a number of injury problems on their own. Another trade I want to talk about is, and again, this is a trade that nobody was speaking about, and I'm going to tell you why. So we know that the Boston Celtics needed depth. They needed depth with regards to maybe adding a player to the bench who can play multiple positions. So they added Evan Fournier, the shoot guard from Orlando. We know Evan Fournier can play sometimes the 1. He can play the 2 and the 3, so he's a versatile player who can score the ball. That's what they needed. They needed some more scoring coming off that bench. And I think the Boston Celtics must have a lock on one of these buyout players, because they did not jump into any of these, at least any realistic conversations for any of the bigs out there. So when you talk about the Aaron Gordons or players like that, you haven't heard about them in those trade conversations, because I think they feel they can collect one of those game-changing bigs in the buyout market. And so it's already been reported that LaMarcus Aldridge is considering the Celtics or the Lakers. We know Drummond is considering the Lakers heavily. He's actually already in LA. So I think this was a good move for the Celtics because it adds depth. Now, obviously, I think a lot of fans might be disgruntled because they still haven't shored up that front line. But believe me, I think those guys are really intelligent over there. I think they know what they're doing. And I think they do have something lined up with regards to the buyout market that we don't know about. So keep your eyes open for the Boston Celtics in this buyout market. We got JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee also went to the Denver Nuggets. So we see what the Denver Nuggets are doing. They're adding defense. They're adding size. They're gearing up for a deep playoff run. So by bringing in JaVale McGee, another center to back up Nikola Jokic, Now, what they're ensuring is that the substitutions that come in for Jokic or the substitutions that come in for Aaron Gordon are athletic defenders. And that's what JaVale McGee, and also JaVale McGee is great, especially with lob sets out of the pick and roll. And we know that Jamal Murray loves to play out of the pick and roll with bigs. So I think they got a great big who can come in, do exactly what they need to do on the defensive end, and on the offensive end, he fits in well with their pick and roll oriented offense. All right, and this was the first trade that at least I saw of the day. This was Nikola Vucevic to the Chicago Bulls. This surprised a lot of people. Because for the last 2 weeks, we've been hearing Lonzo Ball to the Bulls, not Nikola Vucevic. The one thing that I went into this season in talking about the Chicago Bulls, the one thing that I said about the Chicago Bulls is they're loaded at the guard position. They don't need another point guard. I even made jokes about the fact that they were potentially going to draft another point guard. If Lonzo Ball would have dropped to, I think, that 4 spot, they would have drafted Lonzo Ball at the 4 and added another guard. Those are the rumors that were going around out there. And all the while, I'm sitting back thinking they need to show up their front line. That their front line is where they're struggling. The front line is where they're getting their most inconsistent play. With Lauri Markkanen either hurt or playing inconsistent, with Wendell Carter Jr. either hurt himself or when he's playing, he's always in foul trouble. That combination of bigs hasn't worked, right? And so running and jumping to the point guard position are actually pretty solid and versatile with Tomas Satoransky, Kobe White, with Zach LaVine. I mean, they got a host of guards over there who actually do a solid job. Now, do they have a true natural point guard to the level of Lonzo Ball? No, but by committee they have a solid core of guards that can get the job done. Their biggest weaknesses were on the front line. That's what I always thought. Now, did I see this particular trade coming? No, I cannot lie. I definitely did not see this trade coming with Nikola Vucevic. The Bulls receive Al-Farouq Amino and Nikola Vucevic. I like Al-Farouq Amino. I'm not particularly sure how he's going to fit in with that Bulls roster. I think Al-Farouq Amino's probably going to get waived, and I can see a team picking him up, a contending team picking him up for defensive purposes. The Orlando Magic received Wendell Carter Jr. The Bulls were able to unload that bad contract in Otto Porter Jr. They sent him to Orlando, and then the Bulls also gave up a 2021 first-round pick, which is top 4 protected, and then they also gave up a 2023 first-round pick. So the Bulls, they were definitely buying in this market the whole time. But while they were behind the scenes putting in work, really trying to figure out how to make this roster better, they were going the opposite direction of what the fans and media were putting out there. The fans and media were putting out there Lonzo Ball to the Bulls. I never felt that was a good fit or trade. It never made sense to me. It just kept getting pushed in the media. The Vucevic deal, even though it hit me like a curveball, it actually works. You get off of Wendell Carter Jr. All right. So now you have a legitimate big who can defend, who can make shots, who can play out of the pick and roll, who can do everything that you need offensively and defensively. And he's a proven 2-time All-Star. All right. You could pair him alongside Lauri Markkanen. We know Lauri Markkanen is extremely versatile himself, but Lauri Markkanen sometimes has been forced to play the 5 when he's really a true 4, maybe a stretch 3. So now you can move Markkanen to his natural position while Vucevic takes over the 5 spot. All right. Now, obviously this is still a flawed roster, but this is the start. I mean, when you put Vucevic alongside another All-Star and Zach LaVine, that's 2 legitimate All-Stars on your team. That's a great starting point for the Chicago Bulls. So for a team that I highly criticized going into the offseason and then going into this season, even with the draft, when they drafted Patrick Williams, I was criticizing that pick, which is actually panning out to be a solid pick in and of itself. I think they're going in the right direction, but what the Bulls are not doing is they're not letting fanfare and fan hype dictate the decisions that they make. They went out, they did their homework, they really looked at the roster and saw where their most major flaws were, and they went out and corrected it. And I was just talking about this yesterday in the live stream. I said the Bulls need to figure out a way to get rid of some of these contracts. When you talk about Otto Porter Jr., now I know they fell in love with Thaddeus Young, this season, and they definitely don't want to let him go. So I understand that, because the way he's played this year, I would have been reluctant to give him up as well, especially when you're on a young team looking to make the playoffs. Thaddeus Young can help them get there. So the Bulls did everything right. They didn't overreact. They didn't fall for all the fanfare. They made the right moves, and then they didn't overdo it. They made a few. They got rid of the players that they needed to get rid of. All right, they got rid of a bad contract. They had to give up some first round picks, but that's what sacrifices it. And then we all know that Zach LaVine is done. He's already stated this to the team. He does not want to play with any more young players. So those first round picks in the future, if you're looking to keep Zach LaVine, don't really mean anything. You have to start bringing in a solid core of veterans. And I think they have a solid core of veterans with Thaddeus Young, with Vucevic, with Zach LaVine, with Tomas Satoransky, with Kobe White, with Lauri Markkanen. I think they're building a solid core. If they can get it to gel, they could be a tough out in the playoffs. They could be definitely a tough out with Zach LaVine, who leads the league in fourth quarter points, with Vucevic, who can be dominant inside or outside. That would be a tough team to play. With the right coaching, and if this coach coaches them up, that would be a team I definitely would not want to see in the playoffs. And lastly, we have to talk about the man of the hour. The player whose name just constantly gets thrown around by haters. His name gets thrown around by fans. His name gets thrown around by super fans. And for whatever reason, I just never understood it. Now there are times when I have I needed to criticize Lonzo Ball for his play. When he exited the NBA bubble, I didn't like his body language. I didn't like some of the things he said about in regards to his play. I criticized him about that, along with a few other supporters of Lonzo Ball, deservedly so. When he was playing great last year, before the bubble started, or prior to the pandemic and prior to the NBA bubble, I gave him praise. But Lonzo Ball needs to show the consistency. And this year, what Lonzo Ball has done is he's changed that narrative of being an inconsistent player. Last year, he went from playing great, having a stretch of 15 games where he was averaging 20, shooting extremely high percentage from the three-point line. He goes to the bubble, and all of those numbers drop. This year, he's been extremely consistent. His free throw shooting numbers are up. His three-point percentages are up. His field goal percentage is up. His turnovers are down. All right, he has one of the highest assist to turnover ratios in the league. Actually, the highest within the last 4 years at an entire NBA. Points per game are up. He's scoring. He's looking more confident. He's looking comfortable with Zion and Brandon Ingram. Now, when we talk about Lonzo's game, to Lonzo Ball fans, they're used to seeing the UCLA Lonzo Ball, where he's the lead guard, where he's pushing it up, where he's being exciting. And obviously he's on a different team now. His role's slightly different. But what I think he's doing is, and what you have to give Van Gundy credit for, is he's putting Lonzo in a position where he can flourish in his role. Lonzo is having success because Stan Van Gundy has given him a role, and he knows exactly what he needs to do within the confines of this team. All right. So Stan Van Gundy made it clear at the start of this year, Lonzo Ball would help push the ball in transition. In the half court, he needs to become a better spot up 3-point shooter. And Lonzo Ball has done just that. See, and I think last year, I don't think any of those players had a defined role. None of them had a defined role, because from game to game, everything looks so wildly different from game to game. So I like what the direction that they're going with the Pelicans. But again, the big story here, at least for us here at FYF Sports, is the one thing that I was never sold on. And you guys all know this because I've been saying it for months. The one thing that I was never sold on is that the New Orleans Pelicans would be dumb enough to trade Lonzo Ball. All right, now, when the season first started and he had that rough patch of about 5 or 6 games, well, then everybody started to attack him again. Trade talk. And then Lonzo Ball decided to activate, and he's been playing great basketball ever since. But there are a number of things with regards to Lonzo Ball that told me he's an unmovable player right now. Remember, in the offseason, Lonzo Ball declined his extension. He declined his extension, and that was one of the major indicators to me that he would not be getting moved, because I knew that he would be playing a lot better this year. And when a player plays better, generally their value goes up. And when your value goes up in the NBA, the only way you can be traded is if the money you make is equal to your value. Lonzo Ball is not getting paid close to what his value is. Lonzo Ball's value is $18 to $21 million a year. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. He's not making close to that. So the teams that could potentially trade for Lonzo Ball, the one thing is they need to not only have the cap space to bring him in, they have to also be willing to pay him, because he's going to be a restricted free agent. And then you have to make sure that the player or the players that you're sending to the Pelicans are worth what you're getting in Lonzo Ball. And we know that Lonzo Ball, what the Pelicans were asking for was they were asking for a young, talented player and a first-round draft pick. And I don't even think that was enough. I think Lonzo would have been worth a good young player and 2 first-round draft picks, similar to what the Bulls got for Vucevic. And teams were reluctant to pull the trigger on that. And it only makes sense that teams will be reluctant to pull the trigger on that deal because he's going to be a free agent in the offseason. And if you want him that bad, you can just offer him and hope that the New Orleans Pelicans don't offer him. I predict that the New Orleans Pelicans are going to match any offer that Lonzo Ball gets. He's too valuable right now. You're not going to find a better rebounding guard. You're not going to find a better guard on the perimeter defensively. All right, he's one of the best spot-up shooters in the league now. All right, you're not going to find another guard who's smarter in transition. He's outplayed his value. So again, when I made my statement that Lonzo Ball would not be traded, I'm not saying he's going to spend his entire career with the Pelicans. He may very well leave in the offseason. I was a believer that he could not be traded this season because he didn't sign that extension, and it would be too difficult for teams that need him to make the money work. And remember, it goes back down to the business of basketball. All right, and that's all we do. Remember, research purposes only here at FYF Sports. If you do your research, some of these things will be much more clear. The reason why I could say some of the things that I say with so much confidence is because I'm just simply doing research, and I'm not just listening or basing everything off emotion. You know, when people start criticizing, or you see something that you don't like within a team concept or how a team is playing a certain player, you can't always jump off in a tangent and just say trade, or this is what they want when we don't know. A lot of you guys haven't had conversations with Lonzo. We don't know what he wants. Maybe LeVar Ball said this, which LeVar Ball says a lot of things that are taken out of context, and then they'll take snippets of what he says, and then they'll apply it to how Lonzo feels, and they'll try to make it seem like, oh, he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. Then Lonzo has to come out and say he wants to be in New Orleans. It just becomes confusing. This is why you have to start doing your own research. And so I have a video clip right here as we end this video, because again, I don't want to get off on a tangent too long. But you know, this was a big moment right here, because you guys know me. I like to go to other channels. I like to talk basketball. Y'all know the name of the channel, FYF Debates. If I see a controversial video title, if I see something I definitely don't agree with, I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to chime in, and I'm going to tell you why I don't agree. You know, that's what we do here at FYF Sports, man. It's when it comes time to ether people, we have to go ether people. And we don't just talk shit about people. We're not out here name calling. We're not out here talking about your mama. We're not trying to give you the ticket to be treatment. But what we doing is we breaking down the science of the game. We breaking down the science of at least what we know. The business of basketball, what teams need, what the other teams need, how can these trades work if you want to make something happen, and how do both teams benefit? All right, you got to check off all of those boxes before we start saying Trey, oh, he definitely wants to do this. Like, you can have an opinion about it, but don't say it as a matter of fact and not expect somebody like us here at FYF Sports, man, to come ether you on it. So I have a situation right here. Back in early January, and you guys may know this channel right here. Back in early January, I went onto this channel. You know, obviously, I just go on this channel casually. Again, I go onto these channels primarily because I just like listening to basketball talk. And I wasn't even on the live panel. I just was in the chat, just voicing my opinions in the chat. And the next thing I know, as I'm typing something in, my comment goes up on the screen. And I get criticized for this comment. So basically, you guys can see my comment on the screen right here. I'll zoom in on it as well. They were talking about, you can see the title of the video at the top of the screen. It says Lonzo Ball may get traded. And I said in the chat, 0% chance Lonzo is traded. This is back in January. With no signed extension, he's not going to get traded. That's basically what I said. So he put my comment on the screen. Now, I want you to hear the reaction. Now, we know that DJ Raw Uncut Truth, his channel is a Ball family channel. I mean, they're big fans of all of the Ball brothers. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just, and my comments were not in any disrespect to Lonzo Ball. My comments were by Lonzo Ball not signing the extension, he controls his destiny. By him not signing the extension, he knows that the likelihood that the team can try to control his destiny and trade him are extremely low. This is one of the reasons why Lonzo Ball didn't sign that extension. It's the same thing with Victor Oladipo in Houston. The Houston Rockets offered Victor Oladipo an extension that he refused to sign. He didn't sign it because he knew once he signed that contract, Houston could trade him anywhere he wanted and he couldn't control his destiny. It's the same situation here in New Orleans, where Lonzo Ball knew, if I play up to the level that I know I can, this team won't be able to trade me because I will far exceed my value. It'll be impossible to trade me. On top of the fact that I can go into the offseason and I can most definitely get max offers from multiple teams. And I can kind of handpick which teams I want to go to. All right, so what I'm going to do is I just want you guys to hear the conversation, because again, I go into these conversations not necessarily to be argumentative. I simply go into these conversations because I want to bring a unique perspective. You guys hear me say that always. I don't want to always come in with the same talking points that everybody else does. I don't want to always just come in and because somebody makes a statement on Twitter that's not very factual, or you may see something over here on some media site or blog that's not very credible or factual, and then people just, you guys know how the media runs with the wind like a lot of things. And the next thing you know, everyone's saying Lonzo Ball's getting traded. And there were so many different reasons why people were saying Lonzo. There were people saying that Lonzo said he don't want to be there, or LeVar said Lonzo doesn't want to be there, or Lonzo, they're not using him correctly on the court, or Lonzo's not getting along with this player. I mean, there were so many different things coming from all other places. I keep telling you guys, most NBA players look at and listen to a lot of the things that are said about them, and behind the scenes, they're cracking up just laughing, because as fans and as media, a lot of the times we believe some of the garbage that comes out. And once when I heard that and I saw that directly from players, I said, this is one of the reasons why I have to always do my research purposes only, because I don't really want to be putting out, you guys know, I have my Shock Jock series. I don't want to be putting out Shock Jock information. I don't want to be putting out reactionary information. Because I'm galvanized emotionally. Now I want to come out and say X, Y, and Z about a player without doing my research. And I think this is kind of what happened in this particular situation. I think when you're so emotionally connected to a player, sometimes the research, the realism of the situation just goes out the door. And again, I've said back in January, the reality of Lonzo Ball's situation was that he won't get traded. That's the reality. That's the business of basketball. And that's just not with Lonzo Ball. Any rookie on the last year of their deal looking to get an extension is probably not going to get traded. Lauri Markkanen, last year of his rookie deal, didn't get traded. John Collins, last year of his rookie deal, name thrown in a lot of trade talks, didn't get traded. Lonzo Ball, last year of his rookie deal, coming up on an extension, didn't get traded. Like, it's not rocket science to see the trends in some of these things. All you have to do is just do research, and some of these things will just come to you. Remember, you got to stop being emotionally connected to these players so much. But I want to play this clip right here because there was an interesting wager that was thrown my direction. Again, this is not something that I asked for. This was a wager that was brought to me just simply because I did my research and I stated an opinion based off the research that I conducted. Let's listen into this video real quick so you guys can hear the wager that was thrown my way about Lonzo Ball when I was on DJ Raw's Uncut Truth channel.
Yeah, so FIS Sports Debate, thank you for joining the channel. I can't say 0% chance.
Put your money where your mouth is, FYI. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is.
Let's bet $200 that Lonzo Ball's traded.
FYF always comes in with fireballs.
Yep. I'm riding with DJ, so I double that.
I'm just going to pause it really quickly right there. Now, I don't think I came into this chat saying anything that galvanizing or alarming. I just simply made a statement of fact based on the title of the video. The title of the video is Lonzo Ball may get traded. I simply came in and said 0% chance Lonzo is traded with no signed extension. It's too hard to move him because he's going to be more valuable than what his contract actually is. I just use the science of the game. Overall, throughout the history of basketball, rookies on the last year of their deal don't get traded. Now, has it happened before? Yes. But in the climate of today's NBA, does it generally happen? No. Especially when teams are potentially making runs to maybe creep into the playoffs. Especially in a year like this year where you can get into a play-in game and maybe luck up and find yourself at the 8th spot. On top of the fact that when you look at Lonzo and his cohesion with Zion and Brandon Ingram and him also having a career year, it only makes sense to keep him. Same with John Collins, same with Lauri Markkanen, and the same with all of the other rookies on the last year of their rookie deals, looking to get signed in the offseason as restricted free agents. But we're going to continue to play this right here, and I want you guys hear right here. DJ, or at least Rev, and I think Revolution Radio on his channel said he made a proposal to me. He bets that Lonzo Ball, he bet me $200. And he actually said double that. So with Rev it was $400. With DJ it was $200. They bet that Lonzo Ball wouldn't be traded. Now I responded to this. Now I would have put the chat up to show you my responses to this. I'm hoping that he shows it on the screen. But my response was, I put bet about 10 times in the chat. I wanted to lock that bet in because I knew it was easy money. All it takes is, if you understand the business of basketball, you would have known months ago that Lonzo Ball was not going to get traded. It was just a great talking point in the media because people love to listen to news about the Ball brothers. But in reality, it was never something that was gonna happen. Like this was months. This wasn't today. This was months ago that I made this statement. It wasn't very easy to foresee that Lonzo Ball was not going to get traded. Look, we're going to continue listening in on this video. I want you guys to hear this.
Put your money where your mouth is. He getting traded.
There's no way you keep him around with all this is going on around him. If Lonzo stays with the Pelicans, that's a failure on Rich Paul, which he is reputable. He has a good reputation. That's a failure on anyone around Lonzo. He cannot afford to stay with that team.
He said it's a bet. It's a bet. It's up. It's up. I'll be sending you my Cash App directly, kind sir.
See, well, at least, they didn't put it on the screen, but Revolution Radio confirmed that I confirmed the bet. And DJ is respectable, Rev is respectable. I trust their word. So the fact that they lost this bet, I definitely expect. I'll be sending these guys my Cash App. However I can send them. Now I don't know if I can send it to them on YouTube because I don't know if it was one of them or if it was one of their mods, but I was blocked from their channel for some reason. I don't know if it was over this conversation right here, or I don't know if they actually went and did their research, saw that I was going to be right, and then wanted to duck and dodge me and then block me. I don't know. Somehow I'm blocked. But again, that's neither here nor there. My thing is the bet was made, and the bet, I didn't even propose the bet. I just simply wanted to come in and make a basic statement based on the history of basketball, based on the business of basketball, and based on what I thought would happen. And as we saw today, out of all the trade talks, out of all the chatter, like literally everybody was on the edge of their seats today, refreshing their Twitter, looking at social media, this, that, and the other. The one name we didn't see all day today, the one name that we didn't hear about all day today was Lonzo Ball. And I said this would happen yesterday in my live stream. I said the only two players that the Pelicans are looking to move are Eric Bledsoe, which his contract's hard to move, and JJ Redick, who, if they don't trade him, they'll probably buy him out so he can go seek a championship elsewhere, because we know he wants to be on a contending team. That's all I did. They proposed the bet. I accepted the bet. All right. And March 25th is here. The deadline has passed. Lonzo Ball didn't get traded. And a bet's a bet, Now, Rev, I'll be sending you my Cash App. DJ, I'll be sending you my Cash App. Now, hopefully these guys pay, Now, do I expect every bet that I've made on YouTube, nobody's paid. Do I expect anybody to get paid? Do I expect to get paid myself? No. Would I have paid? Yeah, I would have definitely have paid if I would have lost. I wouldn't have taken the bet knowing that if there was any percentage that I could have lost this bet, I wouldn't have took it. If there was a 10% chance that I could have lost this bet, I wouldn't have took it. I knew there was a zero. Look, hold on, y'all. What did I say on the screen, y'all? I said there's a 0% chance Lonzo is traded. I didn't say 5. I didn't say 7%. I didn't say 15%. I literally said I didn't even just make a blanket statement. I didn't even say Lonzo wouldn't get traded. I said there's a 0% chance Lonzo's traded. I left no room for error in there. This is what I knew. It doesn't take rocket science to know these things. And again, when you have a channel based, and I don't even want to say the channel's based on the Ball family. They just make a lot of videos about them. But again, I love Lonzo Ball, Lamelo Ball, the Ball brothers. I love everything that they're doing, LeVar Ball. But when it comes to the NBA basketball, there's another tangent that comes into play. You have the politics, you have the business, and then you have your plan. Politics and the business are all going to come before your ability to play, because I know a lot of talented players who are overseas right now because of politics and because of business of basketball. All right. When we look at Tyreke Evans is no longer in the NBA. Do you guys really, but that's because of politics, because of the business. I mean, there are a lot of talented guys that are no longer in the league that should be in the league. But at this level of basketball, you can't have it your way. That's the one thing you won't, unless you're just a major name and you can really move things on your own. The NBA is always going to be the controlling force in how things work in this NBA spectrum. All right, hold on. We're going to listen into a little bit more of this video. I can't remember if these guys had any additional comments about this. But like I said, the bet's a bet. We bet. And I actually want to rewind it back because I want to know exactly what we bet. I know what DJ was 200. With Rev, it's either 200 or 400. We're going to run it back and find out. Let's run it back a few minutes to figure it out.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Let's bet $200 that Lonzo Ball's traded.
FYF always comes in with fire.
All right, you said bet. So DJ says bet $200 Lonzo is traded. That was a bet. All right, let's hear what Rev said. Let's go ahead and hear what Rev said about that.
Fireballs.
Yep. And I'm riding with DJ, so I double that.
Okay, so now Rev says he's riding with DJ. He's gonna double that. So Rev bet 400. DJ Raw Uncut Truth bet 200. That's 600 coming my way. And my Cash App should be blowing up. Am I getting anything? I haven't got anything yet. Maybe I got to send these guys my Cash App. Maybe they haven't been over to FYF Sports enough to know what the Cash App is. The Cash App, hey, if you're watching this video, the Cash App is very easy though. The Cash App is FYF Sports. It's not very hard, but I'll send you guys the direct link to the Cash App, to come collect that. All right. But salute to you guys, man. Again, you just lost a bet. It ain't nothing. Everybody loses a bet sometimes. We're just not in the business of getting ethered a lot. Again, if I make a bet with you, you better know I know something you don't know. Because I'm not just running around here making any random bets. I actually do some research into these things. Hold on, we're gonna play this a little bit more because I want to see the confirmation of my bet.
Put your money where your mouth is. He getting traded.
There's no way you keep him around with all this is going on around him. If Lonzo stays with the Pelicans, that's a failure on Rich Paul, which he is reputable. He has a good reputation.
First of all, and again, just to refute that right there, where a player stays and goes is not up to an agent. It's up to the player. If Lonzo really wanted to get traded, he could have easily done like Aaron Gordon and said, trade me. He didn't. Okay? So he's not traded. All right? He's not traded. It's not... the agent is there. The agent does more than just handle your NBA contract. Your agent handles all of your off-the-court endeavors, endorsements, things of that nature. The agent helps, obviously, to cash out the deals of your contract, but the agent doesn't determine where you go or where you want to go. The agent's just there to kind of facilitate things and make sure you don't get screwed over. To make sure he's going to try to help you get max money in whatever you are looking to do. All right. If a player wants to, like when Tim Duncan was in San Antonio and he wanted to make, he voluntarily took less money. There was nothing his agent can do about it. His agent couldn't be like, no, go to Orlando and make more money. No, Tim Duncan said, I want to stay here. I'll take less so we can have a winning team. The player controls it all. The agent just has to facilitate it.
That's a failure on anyone around Lonzo. He cannot afford to stay with that team.
He can't afford to stay with the team. Lonzo actually made a great decision by betting on himself. All right, by turning that contract extension down, the first thing he did was he didn't lock himself into a bad contract. Number two, he bet on himself because he said he knows that he's a $20 million per year player, and now he's showing it. So when the offseason hits, you heard all of the potential teams that may be interested in having Lonzo Ball. He's going to get $18 to $21 million per year, if not more. That's a guarantee. And with the NBA market as it is now, don't be surprised if it's 22 to 24 million.
He said it's a bet. It's a bet. It's up. It's up. I'll be sending you my Cash App directly, kind
right,
sir.
Okay.
Wow. I like that bet. He said bet. Good, my brother. Good.
I want to know how.
Yeah.
How do you not see Alonzo? I mean, do you really think they would let the narrative be out there right now that there's this many teams that are seriously considering him if they don't have a trade talk in place right now?
That's where you're wrong right there. Teams don't control the chatter in the media. Now, teams can influence the chatter in the media, but teams don't control it. The media, once the media puts a narrative out there, and the media has shown itself to put out narratives of its own. All right, this narrative that Lonzo Ball is going to be traded was media driven. That wasn't driven off facts. Now, the narrative that John Collins wanted to be traded, that was media driven because the media pushed a potential beef between Trae Young and John Collins. The same with Lauri Markkanen. Even though Lauri Markkanen wasn't in high of a demand, his name is not as popular. All these trade talks are media driven. The trade with Vucevic to the Bulls. How many people How many people knew about that trade before it happened? 0. It surprised everybody today. Because what the teams do behind the scenes, once it gets serious, they don't allow it to leak out. They don't allow stuff like that to leak out. The same thing with the Aaron Gordon trade. There were so many other teams. Everybody was thinking Aaron Gordon might go to the Celtics because it's a good fit. But see, Denver was behind the scenes really putting in real work to make the deal happen. But there was no rumors. There was no media coverage on that because when those two sides got together, they closed the doors. There's no media in there to spread rumors about what's really going on. Things like that just don't get leaked out. The Lakers right now, I told you guys, when the Lakers go radio silent, which they have, they always got an ace up their sleeve. They're working on something. Just don't be surprised if the Lakers bring in some players from the buyout market to bolster this roster. I mean, it's not very hard to deduce. All you have to do is just kind of pay attention to the ebbs and flows of how the NBA works.
He said, speaking greasy. He said, bet, lost that 200 in.
Bet. Y'all see that right there? Bet. Let's lock that 200 in. That's easy money, y'all. That's easy money. It's not very hard. Look, going into next year's trade deadline, understand the ebbs and flows of how the business of the basketball works. All right. Hey, the one thing, listening to media chatter cost these brothers $600. They got to figure out how they gonna pay that bill.
Oh man! Now that's not just a 200 for me. That's
400.
That's 400.
Okay, so I was wrong on that. It was not 600. It was actually 400. So it's 200 from Revolution Radio, 200 from DJ. All right, I'll make sure I'll be sending both you brothers my cash out. And if you need a reminder, I can also provide you a snippet of this video. Obviously, I mean, if you're watching it now, you'll see a snippet of it. But obviously, this is a very good reminder of the bet that we made.
$100.
Like YG.
400.
Believe that.
All right, y'all. There you go. Bet was made with DJ Raw Uncut Truth and Revolution Radio. 200 from each. I mean, it's just a small wager, a very small wager. Again, listening to Shock Jocks in the media only costs you guys combined $400. That's not a very heavy price to pay, but it should be a good learning lesson because here at FYF Sports we love to give these learning principles out. And I wouldn't even really call this a max ether. This was a slight ether. This was just really a learning lesson on. Make sure you when you're talking about this NBA game, this NBA spectrum, look at all of this. Look at all of the forces involved. And all of the forces involved will tell you that a player just simply being unhappy with the team or in his role is not enough to generally get you traded. It takes a number of forces that have to all align to work out a trade. Your contract situation, your value to other teams. The team has to make sure they get equal value for you back. There are so many forces. Like, you can't just trade a player and you get somebody back. It's not a video game. It's real life NBA basketball. So unfortunately for you guys, man, the business of basketball, the business of NBA basketball is going to affect your pockets and positively affect mine to the good. $400 to the positive. So I'll be sending you guys on Twitter. I'll be definitely sending both of you guys my cash app. Lonzo Ball did not get traded as I predicted. And again, they're and I'm not even professing to be right about everything. I actually, I predicted that JJ Redick would potentially end up with the Lakers in a buyout, and JJ Redick was traded to the Dallas Mavericks today. Again, that was my projection on it, but I wasn't going to go out and bet anybody $200 on if JJ Redick would sign with the Lakers. I wasn't locked in on it. When you're talking about buyouts and things of that nature, that's not necessarily something you can really control. So again, not professing to be right about all of the trade moves and things that happen, but with Lonzo Ball, that was the one thing that I was 1,000% confident in, and it shows right here. So again, just a lesson to you guys how to ether people. Not just ether people, you can also collect a few dollars off of them if you do it the right way. Hey, but it's been a great video, man. Salute to everybody who's watching, man. We're gonna be back in a live stream today. Cannot wait to see you guys there. We're definitely going to be talking about today's NBA trades. I mean, you guys know we have to talk about it. Teams that either won this trade, the trade day, teams that lost, what teams should have actually went out and made moves, and then if a team didn't make moves, let's really dive in and evaluate why didn't they make those moves. Is there a reason to it? Is there a reason to the madness? Is it salary cap space that they're trying to clear up? You know, are they looking to next year's draft? Let's really dive in and let's really get to the root of the, not just, you know, what we think, but let's really dive in to see what some of these teams might have been thinking as the deadline approached. Because there's a lot of factors at play when you look to make these moves at the last minute. And the worst thing that you can do at the last minute is make a move based off emotion. You got to think with your head. You got to make smart moves. And then salute to the Chicago Bulls and the Denver Nuggets, who at least as it stands right now are the winners of today's NBA trade deadline. But we'll be back with more sports and news later. But until then, it's FYF Sports, and we out.